Hi, everybody. This is a video which just really goes through revision resources, which I'll be dealing with on Friday of week 13. That's next week, but maybe you want to take a look at earlier. By now, you're furiously working on your final story, and you're trying to carve time out to revise, edit, expand, contract, figure out traumatic questions, all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to give you a couple resources and strategies that you can use during this time. All right, so getting to that, first of all, there's this set of 4 or 5 slides, which starts at slide 227. Remember that these slides are available from the homepage of My Courses. There's also a bunch of documents on My Courses. So what you can see, for example, is if you type in the word revision in the content area, you're going to come up with a bunch of strategies and resources and prompts and 2 things that I think you're reading on the schedule anyways from Joseph Novakovich and Taylor. There's a couple things also in craft handouts that you might want to pay attention to. Brainstorming template asks some questions about your story in general. Character development helps you develop characters. And finally, plot discussion workshop, we'll talk about inciting events and making sure one scene gets to another and the kinds of things that we talked about in our plot summary. All of these are going to be important to you no matter where you are in your process, in part because you're still learning things. You never really want to close down. You don't want to say at almost any point until the end, these are the words I've got, now I'm just going to get rid of a few. That will make for not a very good revision. So you want to keep open, and coming back to these documents will help you with that quite a bit. So those are some things that you have to work with. You can think in terms of revision, and partially this is a time management issue. What you really don't want to be doing is finishing your rough draft the day before class is over. You really want to finish your first draft as soon as you can. Revision is actually the hard work and the work where stuff gets done. I would say, I write lots and lots of drafts, but, most of us, our first draft is about 5% of where we want it to be. So you really want to push to getting a rough draft done quickly and then having lots of time to make what I call passes, different passes at your draft. Anne Lamott talks about, and we read something by her the first week, which was called Shitty First Drafts. She talks about writing 3 drafts. In the first draft, you're just free writing. What I call the barf draft. The second draft, you're making sure you have the right scenes in the right order. So everything's kind of in the right place, even though it might not be as specific and detailed as it could be. And the third draft is all about details and fine tuning. Now, this assumes that after every draft, you're sort of aware of what you have and where you want to go. So you sort of make a plan. But if you are working for a kind of 3 draft scenario, this might be a way to go. I want to talk a little bit about my philosophy of revision. I'm a writer who actually revises much more than my first drafts, and it takes me a long time. But most writers revise a lot. The amount of time spent creating the first draft versus revising is probably like 1 to 5, and that's probably something you should be going for too. What I want to convey to you is that revision is a creative process. It's not just like, oh, that's an extra period. Oh, you misspelled something. Oh, that right there isn't, you have to get rid of that. It's a place where you can rethink how your characters are working, how your sentences are working. Sometimes by getting new details in there, it gives you new ideas for where things go or what things connect to what. But I want you to think about it as a creative process. We often think about like writing. The first draft is our inspiration, and we sit, in the shade of a nice tree and we write. And then revision is like the grunt work. That's not true. And if you consider it that way, it's not going to make for very successful revisions because you're going to be resenting what you're doing. But if you imagine revision as a creative space in which you're taking scaffoldings and making them more specific and vivid and lively, then it can be a lot more fun. So I want you to think about revision as creative and as both addition and subtraction. It's an opportunity to make every little bit wonderful and great and transformative to somebody else, which is kind of your goal, right? So you make a sentence more detailed, replace an abstraction, energize your syntax. You've heard me say this before, but I can't stress to you enough how that means taking some time. So what you might want to do, you want to get your first draft done a couple weeks in advance and then go over, do some revision work for an hour every day. And we'll talk about strategies to do that. But you really want to do it iteratively because sometimes you can't see what you're looking at anymore. You get sick of it. It's no longer fresh. So you have to kind of see it with fresh eyes once again. And that means being able to have not only time to revise, but time between revisions. And lastly, it means that you take time at those moments to also become aware of what you've written so that you can create a clear plan of what you want to do, so you can leverage new themes that you're just now seeing, and maybe refine your inciting event and dramatic questions by specific dialogue pieces or specific parts of scenes that can work with that a little bit more. Really, this is an open, creative process. I know that's hard when you have a week left in the semester and you're all like, I'm going to pull my hair out. But that's why you get your rough draft done so early in the game. All right. Here are some things that I do. Writing 500-page books, writing 20-page stories, it doesn't really make a difference. These are strategies that I won't use all of them, but I'll use a combination of them at any given time. The first one's actually the one I use the most, which is I will, in a revision session, replace one abstraction with a concrete detail every page. Maybe two. It depends on how long it is. But what that means is that it doesn't make a huge difference on the first day, but after a week, you've made a huge, huge difference. 140 improvements if you're doing 20, you have a 20-page thing. So doing that slowly and just finding one thing each day on each page. And what happens is that you may see something that feels like a concrete thing, and then you make other abstract things concrete, and that concrete thing actually seems less abstract because you kind of raised the level of everything else. So it's like interlacing, or you keep making them more specific where you need to. So that's one thing. Oh man, look at these typos. Robert, you are a bad teacher. The other thing I do is I read my work aloud. That allows you to hear the sound of things. It also allows you to hear where things just don't make a lot of sense, or you're saying things, it makes you attuned to unuseful repetitions. The third thing I do is I print out a copy. Now, you may have a hard time getting to a printer, but we get real myopic when we're just looking at screens. It gets real hard to see things clearly. So printing can be helpful. Now, once you print, it may just be that change in media that allows you to be clear. But one thing you can do is spread it out on the floor or hang it on clothespins or thumbtack it. That can be really useful in seeing balances. So you may find that you've spent 10 pages with this minor character and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. They're a minor character. Or maybe you make them a major character. Or you see that you've spent half your story on a really unimportant scene that isn't doing a lot of work and that you maybe want to change that up. But by spatializing the paper, it can be much easier to see how these things work. So I do those things regularly. Another thing I'll do is I'll make a pass, a revision where I'm focusing on one particular element of craft: setting, dialogue, character appearance, tension, conflict, any one of those. And I'll just really focus on that and nothing else. And then again, if you do that for one day, it's one small piece. But if you do that for a week, it can make a radical difference. And lastly, ask for help and ask for people who are willing to be honest and direct with you. That means me, that means your friends, that means your writing groups. You want to see how others react, not only to clean up your prose, but because people will often see something wonderful that you just can't see, or a theme, or some detail that connects to something else in a really fascinating and amazing way. So rely on other people to help you out. Plus, you get to see if you're transforming them the way that you want to. All right, that's what I have in terms of revision. Again, if this is enough for you, then you don't necessarily need to come to next week's Friday session to talk about revision. I'll be going over this there. Or you can come and ask questions about revision. Maybe you have your own revision techniques, and I can incorporate them into this document. In any case, that's revision. Ask me questions, talk to me in office hours, and good luck continuing on with your final stories.